No, yeah,
Order. Daily routine, presenting and reading petitions. Presenting reports of committees. I recognize the honourable member for Bedford Basin.
Thank you, Speaker, and I come bearing gifts. Speaker, as Vice Chair of the Committee on Public Bills, I'm directed to report that the committee has met and considered the following bills. Bill number 1, an act respecting government organization and administration. Bill number 6, an act respecting agriculture, energy, and natural resources. Bill number 11, an act respecting administrative efficiency and accountability in healthcare. Bill number 12, an act respecting advanced education and research. Bill number 21, an act respecting the administration of justice. And Bill number 68, an act respecting certain financial and other government measures.
The reports are tabled. Referred to the Committee on the Whole House on Bills. Tabling reports, regulations, and other papers. Statements by ministers. Government notice of motions. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Nova Scotians are taking action to protect coastal properties and communities from the impacts of climate change, such as rising sea level and erosion, and whereas in planning the new Nova Scotia Community College waterfront campus in Sydney, a large coastal construction project, the design team used projected sea level rise data to make the building resilient to possible future impacts. And whereas this project was led by Daniel Kelly, Director of Facilities and Engineering, and Mike Chapman, Manager of Infrastructure and Sustainability, the new campus was raised to withstand sea levels projections for the year 2100 and has special windows to withstand storm force winds, demonstrating how data, tools, and planning are helping people make informed choices about building near the coast that are safe and sustainable. Therefore, be it resolved that Nova Scotians join me in recognizing Daniel Kelly and his design, engineering, and construction team, who are using science and data to make our buildings and communities resilient to climate change. Madam Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favour of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader for the official opposition.
Speaker, I'm wondering if we could revert back to tabling of documents and reports.
There has been a request to revert back to tabling documents. Is it agreed? Agreed? It is agreed. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
As per the request of the House, I would like to table a document based on my statement on Friday that I was supposed to table.
Please. The document is tabled. Introduction of bills. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 385 of the Revised Statutes of 1989, the Real Property Act, to eliminate competitor property controls that restrict access to food or medicine.
The honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 385 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Real Property Act, to eliminate competitor property controls and restrict access to food or medicine.
Bill 82, an act to amend Chapter 385 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Real Property Act, to eliminate competitor property controls that restrict access to food or medicine.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Protect Nova Scotia Workers from Tariffs through Employment Insurance Top-Ups.
The honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Protect Nova Scotia Workers from Tariffs through Employment Insurance Top-Ups.
Bill 83, an act to protect Nova Scotia workers from tariffs through employment insurance top-ups.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 197 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Health Services and Insurance Act respecting free birth control.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 197 of the Revised Statute 1989, the Health Services Insurance Act, respecting free birth control.
Bill 84, an act to amend Chapter 197 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Health Services and Insurance Act, respecting free birth control.
Order that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Create a Comprehensive Economic Strategy.
The honourable member for Timberley Prospect begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Create a Comprehensive Economic Strategy.
Bill 85, an act to create a comprehensive economic strategy.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on the future day. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Establish the Nova Scotia Healthcare Trust.
Thank you.
The honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island begs leave to entitle a bill begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Establish the Nova Scotia Healthcare Trust.
Bill 86, an act to establish the Nova Scotia Healthcare Trust.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Armdale.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill, an act to give Nova Scotians the right to primary care.
The honourable member for Halifax Armdale begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Give Nova Scotians the Right to Primary Care.
Bill 87, an act to give Nova Scotians the right to primary care.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 12 of the Acts of 2011, the Public Procurement Act. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Cumberland North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 12 of the Acts of 2011, the Public Procurement Act.
Bill 88, an act to amend Chapter 12 of the Acts of 2011, the Public Procurement Act.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table an act entitled An Act to Recognize the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia.
The honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Recognize the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia.
Bill 89, an act to recognize the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2010, the Finance Act. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Cumberland North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2010, the Finance Act.
Bill 90, an act to amend Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2010, the Finance Act.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Establish Two-Spirit and Indigenous LGBTQIA+ Awareness and Celebration Day.
The honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Establish Two-Spirit and Indigenous LGBTQIA+ Awareness and Celebration Day.
Bill 91, an act to establish Two-Spirit and Indigenous LGBTQIA+ Awareness and Celebration Day.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Provide Relief from Expenses Due to Road Construction. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Cumberland North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Provide Relief from Expenses Due to Road Construction.
Bill 92, an act to provide relief from expenses due to road construction.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. Moving on. Notices of motion. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
I hereby give notice that on a future date, I will move the following motion. Whereas economic development proposals need to reflect a reasonable business case analysis, whereby various factors and indicators are examined to understand Nova Scotia's strengths, opportunities, and weaknesses in targeted industries, and to develop strategies for sustainable growth and development in terms of attracting investment, employment creation and recruitment, and infrastructure needs. And whereas all Nova Scotians are treaty people, whereby the Nova Scotia government has a legal and constitutional duty to consult with the Mi'kmaq, and this cannot be ignored. And where there are no special interests in Nova Scotia, and gaining social license for natural resource development is an industry-accepted process and needs to be developed by consultation amongst all stakeholders, inter alia. I don't have the second page, sorry.
Sorry, take your time.
Can I have a moment to grab the second page of the motion? Or I can table it later.
You can table the second page later.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So the motion reads, therefore be it resolved that the House refer the issue of economic development analysis and the development of our natural resource sector to the Standing Committee on Natural Resources and Economic Development to undertake a study of what is necessary for us to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wait, hold on. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? No. There's several nays. The notice of motion is tabled. Statements by members. I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to bring recognition to a great group of youth who have made the Square Roots program possible in Dartmouth East. Once a month, youth in Dartmouth assist with preparing bags of fresh produce and delivering them to families in need around Dartmouth. These youth, often from local sports teams and youth clubs, are facilitated by HRM Deputy Mayor Tony Mancini and myself to ensure families are supported by the Square Roots program. At this time of national inflation and food insecurity, Square Roots is playing an important role in assisting with these challenges. That's why they continue to grow across our province. Square Roots is currently in 16 locations and are providing food to residents in 25 communities. Their goal is to be working in every county in Nova Scotia before the summer. Square Roots, which began 9 years ago with St. Mary's students in the Enactus program, has recently surpassed 1 million pounds of food distributed. What they've accomplished is truly incredible. Madam Speaker, I ask that all members of the House join me in thanking the organizers and volunteers of Square Roots, congratulating them on their remarkable achievements and laudable goals. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Joining us today, we have members of the St. Mary's University Enactus team who last joined us on their way to Kazakhstan in the fall, and they're on the way to the Nationals in spring, and I have a member statement relative to their work. So today, I'd like to welcome Courtney Dingle. Sorry.
Are you?
Oh,
sorry. Introduction.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's we just had March break. Yeah. No. So are you begging leave to do an introduction?
I am begging leave to make an introduction.
Well, go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Still joining us today in the gallery is Courtney Dingle, Gabe Martin, Sarah Wheeler, Nathaniel Collier, Evan Payne, Tyler McLean, Hannah Johnston, Jason Turner, Leslie Arsenault, Robert Francis, and Rohit. And I welcome them all to the House.
Welcome to the House. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to mark a provincial milestone initiated and led by St. Mary's University students. This month, Square Roots celebrates the major milestone of delivering 1 million pounds of food since its beginning in 2016. Square Roots was developed by students at SMU who participate in the Enactus program, bringing together entrepreneurial-minded students with social action. Square Roots buys imperfect but perfectly edible food from local farmers and sells it directly to customers at a price that is 50% less than at the grocery store. So Nova Scotians benefit from getting healthy food at a more affordable price, and farmers benefit because they get revenue from food that may have otherwise gone to waste. Square Roots addresses the twin issues of food waste and food insecurity. Working with local contacts, Square Roots is currently bringing food to 16 counties across Nova Scotia and intends to be in all 18 this year. Their goal is to expand the program nationally. Madam Speaker, I ask all members to recognize the team's ongoing impact in Nova Scotia.
recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in my place and I want to take a moment to congratulate Mark Carney on becoming leader of the Liberal Party of Canada and our next Prime Minister. This is an exciting time for Canadians across the country. There's a renewed sense of pride and optimism about the future, and I know that Prime Minister Carney's leadership will bring a steady hand at a time when our country needs it the most. With a strong economic background, I know that he'll help us navigate the challenges ahead, like strengthening the economy, making life more affordable, and ensuring that no Canadian is left behind. These are the issues that matter to Nova Scotians, and I look forward to engaging with him and his team to ensure our province is heard and supported. I know many Liberals in Nova Scotia worked hard to make this moment happen. Congratulations again to Prime Minister Carney and his team. I look forward to working together to build a better future for all Canadians.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Atlantic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think someone's trying to get to the Senate. Madam Speaker, yesterday... Madam Speaker, yesterday Nova Scotians of Irish descent and those who are Irish at heart celebrated St. Patrick's Day, a day that speaks to the deep historical connection between Nova Scotia and Ireland. For centuries, Irish immigrants have shaped our province from the early settlers who arrived here in the 18th and 19th centuries, fleeing hardship and seeking opportunity to the generations of Irish Canadians who continue to enrich our communities today. My own family traces its roots back to Enniskillen, Ireland, a reminder of the enduring ties that link our province to the Emerald Island. St. Paddy's Day is more than a cultural celebration. It is a testament of the resilience, unity, and strength of the Irish spirit and people. It is a day to share meals, enjoy music, and raise a glass in good cheer. Happy St. Paddy's Day to everyone. Much love to our Irish family across this beautiful world. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
I'd like to draw the members' attention to the gallery opposite, where we are joined by 3 folks who are no stranger to this chamber and 1 who is new. So I'd like to introduce Joe Triff, who is the Vice President of the Halifax Professional Firefighters Association, his daughter Zoe, who is with him today, and Mike Sears and Brendan Marr, his colleagues. I ask all members to join me in offering them a warm welcome.
Welcome to the House. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize Joe Triff, the Vice President of the Halifax Professional Firefighters Association. Since stepping into this role, Joe has been a strong leader in advocating for a safer firefighting culture, one that is better equipped to deal with the extreme conditions Nova Scotians have become all too familiar with in recent years. Joe was recently recognized for his leadership at the International Association of Firefighters Affiliate Leadership Training Summit, where he was honored with the General's Award for Leadership. Joe is one of only 4 affiliate leaders across North America to receive this recognition, a testament to his dedication, leadership, and tireless commitment to Halifax professional firefighters and the communities that they serve. Please join me in congratulating Joe on this achievement and thanking him for his tireless service.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a longtime Bruins fan, I want to recognize one of the all-time greats who has recently been traded to the Florida Panthers after 16 seasons in Boston. Brad Marchand is the kind of guy you love to have on your team and the kind of guy that you hate on the other team. He even earned the nickname from former President of the U.S., Barack Obama, as the little ball of hate before. Regardless of getting into a bit of trouble on the ice, he always played with unparalleled passion and grit. Marchand helped the team win a Stanley Cup in 2011 and earned 5 gold medals for Team Canada, including most recently at the Four Nations Face-Off this year in Boston. Marchand will go down as a legendary Bruin, joining the likes of Bobby Orr, Johnny Busick, Phil Esposito, Cam Neely, Ray Bourque, and so on, with team records like the most shorthanded goals, most overtime goals, and most playoff goals. I'll continue to keep his jersey on the wall that his family gifted to me in 2021, and Nova Scotia will continue to cheer him on number 63. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction before my member statement.
Please do.
Madam Speaker, my little sister Ann Balser is in the gallery today. And everyone should know that it is also her birthday, so I'm really glad that Mom dragged you out to see me, Ann.
Welcome to the house. We hope you enjoy your time here. Happy birthday and hi, Mama Balser. I recognize the honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today with so much love and admiration to recognize my little sister Ann Balser on her birthday and to brag about all of her golf accomplishments. Madam Speaker, my family and I knew that Ann was destined for greatness at a young age. For me, is when she started beating me on the golf course. Ann's natural talent combined with her incredibly competitive nature, it was only a matter of time that all of Ann's trophies would take up all the space in our house. In addition to the countless tournaments she's won, provincial titles she's earned, and the multiple All-Canadian and All-American teams she was named to, in 2008, Ann led the Lady Vikes to their first national championship and was named the University of Victoria Female Athlete of the Year in 2011. Most recently, Ann was named the 2024 recipient of the Stan Leonard Class A Assistant Professional of the Year. Ann's impact on the game has been felt across the province as a player, a competitor, and now as a coach and a professional. I extend my deepest congratulations to my sister on all of her achievements and for making us so proud. In my completely biased opinion, Madam Speaker, Ann is the best female golfer that Nova Scotia has ever seen. I love you, Ann. Happy birthday. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Armdale.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
I'd ask the legislature to join me. One of the most courageous women I know, Ms. Gwendolyn Brown, and her family are here in the legislature today.
Well, welcome to the house. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Armdale.
Ms. Brown is a native of East Preston, but now is proud to call the pubs in Halifax home. Gwendolyn has an incredible story which was shared last week on CBC on March 13th. During her lifetime, Gwendolyn has overcome poverty, mental health, and periods of living on the streets. She's also been involved in sexual assaults and spent time being involved in human trafficking. Ms. Brown is not only a survivor, but she's also a true courageous leader. She has founded she is the founder and CEO for Empowerment for Hope, an organization that supports people in sex trafficking and gender-based violence. She's an advocate, a speaker, and community leader. Gwendolyn, you're one of the most courageous people I've ever met. I know your story, your actions inspire others, give them hope, but also make them feel not so alone in sometimes a tragic world. So thank you so much for your actions.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand today to recognize the retirement of a Deputy Minister who worked tirelessly on behalf of Nova Scotians for many years, Ava Zappalay. She most recently was Deputy Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration, and Ava and I have a shared personal history that both our grandfathers worked in the Spring Hill coal mine at the same time. The ability to work hard and to persevere is in our DNA. This government has referred to problem stretchers and problem solvers. Those who know and who worked with Ava appreciated her work ethic, her keen interest, and her astute problem-solving abilities. Many MLAs have commented on Ava's full grasp of her files, evident during her many HR and Public Accounts Committee hearings. While in government, Ava created EduNova Cooperative, set up creative spaces called sandboxes within universities, led in the establishment of the Research Nova Scotia, and recently coordinated the development and implementation of a plan to modernize apprenticeship, strengthen workers' compensation system, and implement a strong economic immigration program. And I'll continue this in my next time up. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
No? I recognize the honourable member for Sydney Member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also want to rise to my feet and recognize someone that many of us know and hear that served as an MLA from 2013 to 2024, Tony Ince, the Honourable Tony Ince, who was just named a senator. Tony is a good friend of mine and many in here. He's given some of the most passionate speeches you ever would have seen in this place. But I do want to stand on my feet to recognize Tony. Not only was he the MLA, he was the Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs for this province. He was the first Minister of the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism. He was the Minister of Communications Nova Scotia. He brought forward the Emancipation Day Act for Nova Scotia, and he brought forward the Land Title Acceleration Act to speed up land titles. So I rise in my place to recognize a good man, a gentleman, a friend to many, and congratulate him on his appointment to the Canadian Senate. Tony Ince. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Waverley Fall River Beaverbank.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, March 11th was Canadian Women Physician Day, and I would like to highlight a family physician who was born in Oakfield. Dr. Alison Freeman has dedicated her career to advancing rural and remote health care. Her education at the University of Wollongong in Australia and the University of British Columbia in Victoria focused on rural and Indigenous health. Dr. Freeman's extensive experience includes practicing in the Yukon, where she served as president of the Yukon Medical Association and provided care in remote communities. Now settled in Liverpool, she continues her commitment to rural health care, emphasizing community involvement and personalized patient relationships. A passionate advocate for physician recruitment and diversity in medicine, Dr. Freeman works to attract talent to Nova Scotia. As physician recruitment and retention lead in the Western Zone, she is pivotal in welcoming new physicians, balancing her roles as a mother and physician. Madam Speaker, please join me in celebrating Dr. Freeman and welcome her back to Nova Scotia.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Speaker, it's my pleasure to recognize two champions from my riding in Sackville. With us today from the Cobequid Health Centre Foundation, our President and CEO, Stacey Chapman, and Marketing and Communications Coordinator, Cassandra Collett. I'll ask them to stand and be recognized by the House.
Welcome to the House. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Speaker, I rise to recognize champions of healthcare progress in Sackville. Founded by nurses who recognize the pressing need for improved healthcare in our area, the Cobequid Health Centre Foundation maintains a legacy of generosity and selflessness by bringing new technologies and services to the Cobequid Health Centre that simply would not exist otherwise. The foundation recently concluded fundraising for new GI Genius units for its endoscopy clinic. This technology promises to transform colorectal cancer screening at the Cobequid Health Centre and contribute to better outcomes for those suffering from the disease, which has one of the highest mortality rates of all cancers. Not content to rest on this success, the Cobequid Health Centre Foundation will spend all of May, Cobequid Month, fundraising for a transvaginal ultrasound probe, which will improve patient comfort during exams and improve diagnostic accuracy for issues like urinary tract infections or congenital uterine anomalies. Speaker, I asked all in attendance to join me in thanking Stacey and Cassandra for not only maintaining our community's health, but for improving it for years to come.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to recognize Cody Blois for his appointment that he earned as Canada's Agriculture Minister. Cody was elected since 2019 and served as chair of the Atlantic Liberal Caucus and as chair of the Standing Committee on Agriculture. He has been a strong advocate for the agriculture sector here in Nova Scotia and across Canada, which led to recognition by the Canadian Produce Marketing Association as its 2023 Produce Champion. As Minister, he will be a welcome voice for the Canadian agriculture sector that is a crucial contributor to both the Nova Scotia and the entire Canadian economy. I ask all members of the House of Assembly to join me in congratulating Cody and wish him well with this new, very important portfolio. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Kings North.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and congratulate Bruce MacArthur on being awarded the King Charles III Coronation Medal, a well-deserved honour that reflects his outstanding commitment to community service. As a dedicated board member of the King's Volunteer Resource Centre, Bruce has worked tirelessly to support volunteerism, ensuring that individuals and organizations have the resources and encouragement they need to serve our communities. His leadership and vision have helped strengthen volunteer networks, foster community engagement, and inspire others to take an active role in making a difference. Bruce's dedication and contributions have left a lasting impact, and his honor, this honor is a testament to his unwavering service to Nova Scotia and beyond. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of this House join me in congratulating Bruce MacArthur on receiving this distinguished medal and thank him for his invaluable contributions to our province. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, one of my must-visit stands at the Alderney Farmers Market is Guilt-Free Goodies, run by 14-year-old Dartmouth North resident Louis Gossens. Louis's cookies are gluten-free, dairy-free, and made without refined sugars. They are truly delicious. They're a perfect mix of sesame and sweetness. Guilt-Free Goodies does their best to use local ingredients, including Foot Family Farm honey. A grade 9 student at Bicentennial Junior High, Louis was originally inspired by his father's healthy cookies, which he knew would just sell really well at markets. And so he was too young to get a job, so he made one for himself. Sales were good, and Louis was making a profit, so he kept going to markets and will for as long as he can. And I'm thrilled to report that Louis has used his profits to save for university. I ask the House to join me in congratulating this young entrepreneur on his success and wish all the best for Louis Gossens in what I am sure will be a promising future. And also, do yourselves a favor and try the cookies as soon as possible.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I make an introduction before I finish my member statement?
Please do.
Yes, thank you. Today, Madam Speaker, I'd like them to rise and introduce Jennifer Graves, who is here today, along with Liz Leclerc. Please stand.
Welcome to the House. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to recognize them. They're both fearless women who stand in their truth, and thank you for all their work in their NDA. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to finish my member statement on the retirement of Deputy Minister Ava Sazaplay. And Ava was not a deputy who sat behind her desk. She traveled to every corner of this province to listen and inform her minister of issues facing work of Nova Scotians. The CEO of Emerson Packaging, a large employer in Amherst, commented to me on Ava's accessibility and problem-solving abilities too. I experienced her support, as I know many MLAs did, on matters within my constituency. The chair of the Workers' Compensation Board recently wrote to Ava that our collaborative initiatives and the significant progress in reducing workplace injuries are a testament to your vision, integrity, and ability to foster meaningful cooperation. As chair of the International Women's Forum Atlantic Chapter, Ava initiated an annual reception that honored elected women regardless of political affiliation. So please join me to wish former Deputy Minister Ava Sazaplay a happy and well-deserved retirement after 38 years of service to Nova Scotians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Kings North.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize and congratulate Angela Patterson on receiving the King Charles III Coronation Medal in recognition of her outstanding service to our community. As a dedicated board member of the King's Volunteer Resource Centre, Angela has been a tireless advocate for volunteerism, ensuring that organizations and individuals have the support they need to give back to our communities. Her leadership and passion for service have strengthened the culture of volunteerism in Nova Scotia and inspired many others to contribute their time and skills for the betterment of others. Angela's selfless dedication and unwavering commitment to making a difference in her truly deserving of this prestigious honor. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of this House to join me in congratulating Angela Patterson on this well-earned recognition and thank her for her ongoing contributions to our province. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Madam Speaker, I rise to recognize Premier Cheerleading All-Stars and the teams located in Gardner Mines and the fantastic season all teams have had. Glow Superior at Meltdown, Lux Cheer Blast, first place. Lux CNCC, first place. Lux Meltdown, first place. Lady G, Cheer Blast, first place, and Blast Off champions, overall Judge's Choice. CNCC, first place, also Judge's Choice. Undone, CNCC, first place. Meltdown, first place, and Judge's Choice. Mini Mac, Cheer Blast, first place. Cheer Challenge, second place. Meltdown, first place. Blink, CNCC, second place. Meltdown, first place. Rare, CNCC, first place. And Tumbling Specialty Award. Meltdown, first place, and Judge's Choice for R1.
I recognize the honourable member for Argyll.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The majority of children born in the Tri-Counties are born in the Yarmouth Regional Hospital, and the Women and Children's Unit requires the best equipment possible to help both mothers and babies during this exciting time. This year, the Yarmouth Hospitals Foundation's We Care Radiothon raised an amazing $136,409 for the purchase of vital new equipment for the unit. The equipment to be purchased includes birthing beds that offer comfort and safety for the mother, infant incubators that offer a protective and temperature-controlled environment for newborns, ensuring they have the best possible start in life, and pediatric infant scales that are specifically designed for a demanding healthcare environment. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of the House to join me in thanking the donors, the sponsors, and everyone who participated in making this year's We Care Radiothon another huge success. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, in 2004 and 2005, the Supreme Court of Canada released 3 landmark decisions that established the common law duty to consult with Aboriginal peoples. The Supreme Court of Canada held that provincial and federal governments have a duty to consult with Aboriginal peoples and accommodate their interests where appropriate when contemplating conduct that may adversely impact established and asserted Aboriginal treaty rights. The government of Nova Scotia recognizes the duty to consult with Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia and beginning in 2007 established an institutional framework for consultation. This includes an interim consultation policy, the Mi'kmaq Nova Scotia Canada Consultation Terms of Reference, a consultation cooperation agreement with the federal government, a guide for proponents, a consultation division at the Office of Aboriginal Affairs, a number of training and capacity building initiatives, and supporting guiding tools to ensure the duty is met. The government of Nova Scotia policy and guidelines, consultation with the Mi'kmaq Nova Scotia achieves another important step in developing a consistent process that respects the established and asserted rights of the Mi'kmaq people of Nova Scotia.
I recognize the honourable member for Cole Harbour Dartmouth.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise today to celebrate a longtime resident of Cole Harbour, Dartmouth. Karen Gibson has lived in the community for more than 50 years and is a retired professional dietitian with an exceptional 35-year career at the Nova Scotia Rehab Centre. Also, Karen is very involved with volunteering, including supporting the Halifax Hospice and serving as chair of the Cole Harbour Heritage Festival for 10 years. She is also a mom and soon to be a grandmom. Karen was also a valued volunteer in my campaign and was always a wonderful door-knocking partner, even in some pretty wet and miserable weather. Door-knocking with Karen was always great because she knew everyone in the community. Residents who didn't know me were willing to take her word that I would likely be a good MLA because I'm a good neighbor. Thank you for your belief in me, Karen. Madam Speaker, I ask the members of this legislature to join me in recognizing an exceptional member of our community, a great volunteer, and an amazing neighbor, Karen Gibson.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, I rise to recognize Shalane Jodri. For more than 2 decades, Shalane Jodri, has Elnu and European descent storyteller, has worked as a playwright, podcast producer, oral storyteller, actor, and cultural interpreter. The past number of months have been particularly busy. Her first short film as a director and producer premiered at the 2024 Toronto International Film Festival. Willamuk means it smells good and is the base for one of the Mi'kmaq words for sweetgrass, inspired by the sweetgrass gathering she does each summer with her family. In November, she led the development of The Winter Moon, a dance theater performance that followed the story of Elnu women surviving 3 moons of winter together deep in the forest. She worked with dance choreographer Sarah Prosper and the women of the First Light, grandmothers and cultural carriers. A member and resident of the Bear River First Nation, Sean holds a Master's of Environmental Studies from Dalhousie and is now an interdisciplinary PhD candidate and an instructor of a land-based course. Madam Speaker, I ask all members to recognize Shalane's contributions to Nova Scotia.
I recognize the honourable member for Guysborough-Tracadie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to congratulate the organizers of the annual McDonald Memorial Bonspiel at the Cancel Curling Club on their 50th anniversary. This event, held this year on March 29th, is in memory of Joe McDonald, a cherished father, friend, and lifelong member of the community. Joe's love for curling and his dedication to the club are remembered by all who had the privilege of knowing him. His spirit of camaraderie, sportsmanship, and unwavering support for the Cancel Curling Club are qualities we strive to carry forward. It's fitting this bonspiel, a celebration of the sport he loved, continues to bring together the Canso and area curling community in both friendly competition and shared memories. Special mention to Joe's family and extended family in keeping this tradition going, ensuring that his passion for curling lives on through events like this. Madam Speaker, I want to extend my congratulations on 50 years of the McDonald Memorial Bonspiel. To all the participants, volunteers, and organizers who make this event a success year after year, wish you a successful event coming up on the 29th. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, the brave souls of the Darkside Dippers meet every Sunday morning throughout the winter and early spring on the shores of Lake Bannock to plunge into the lake's chilly waters. These polar dippers have recently brought their love for cold and community together to raise funds for the North Grove Food and Community Hub in Dartmouth North. The Cold Dips for Hot Meals fundraiser asks a pertinent question. What's more nerve-wracking, jumping into freezing water or your grocery bill? Individuals and teams are sponsored by friends and family to do 5, 12, or 25 polar dips in the name of raising $15,000 or 3,000 free meals to families facing food insecurity. Every $50 raised is another 10 cooked meals served. And the fundraiser wraps up this week. I ask the House that the House join me in thanking the Darkside Dippers for getting cold for a cause and supporting the vital work of the North Grove. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Preston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to recognize the Dartmouth Pig Dogs Rugby Football Club, RFC, a nonprofit sport organization that serves people across several rural and urban Nova Scotian communities. Since 2001, the Dartmouth Pig Dogs RFC has provided those who participate in the sport of rugby opportunities to build transferable skills, establish health and wellness, and create a lasting community. They provide rugby programming and competitive play from ages 4 to 50 plus. They provide low-barrier opportunities for youth to engage in the sport while ensuring diversity and inclusion in the sport through several outreach initiatives. They facilitate free rugby try-it days for youth in the community, and in just 5 years, their programs have been accessed by more than 700 youth. I ask all members to please join me to recognize the Dartmouth Pig Dogs Rugby Football Club for the work they do in the community of Dartmouth and surrounding areas. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Part 2 of the premier cheerleading all-star teams and their successes. Sleek, the team Sleek, Cheer Blast, first place. CNCC, first place. Meltdown, first place. Smashbox. Cheer Blast, first place. CNCC, first and stunt specialty award. Maritime Meltdown, first and level 1 judge's choice. Two-Faced, Cheer Blast, first place. CNCC, first place. Meltdown, first place. Atomic, Meltdown, you name it, first place. The Tiny Tart, the Bomb Baz, and the Cover Girls, all Excellence Performance Awards. Cheerleading is certainly on the move in Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier, thanks to their home base in Gardner Mines. Good luck, girls, in your future.
I recognize the honourable member for Pictou West.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge the After School Celtic crew. This new after-school program is owned and operated by 2 Pictou County mums with experience in Celtic studies and programming, including Highland dance. Holly McDonald Bent and Kelsey Wallace are also co-founders of the Pictou Celtic Arts Society. The Celtic Crew is a space for children aged 4 to 12 to experience Celtic heritage and culture while having fun through games, songs, lessons, art, and dance. Young members get to experience Gaelic language, Celtic history, and folklore. Please join me in congratulating Holly and Kelsey for opening this dynamic youth club in Pictou West. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize my brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, cousins, and family of warriors in the community of Spaganacity. During my community conversations, Chief Michelle Glasgow spoke with me about the lack of communication by this government to move forward with mining and fracking without consult. She was offended and angered by the total lack of respect for Nova Scotians by implying that Nova Scotia is open for sale to the highest bidder. She spoke about the government utilizing Section 26 of the Mineral Resources Act to allow lithium exploration over private lands. This is a direct infringement of Mi'kmaq rights to the land, since absolute title to all lands in Nova Scotia belong to the Mi'kmaq. I would like to remind all members in this House that we are on unceded and unsurrendered land of the Mi'kmaq people, which are protected. And as a government, we have a duty to consult always. It is not an option.
I recognize the honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Robert Comeau of Sonyville. After being diagnosed with MS in 2015, Robert found out about the May 50K fundraiser to help raise funds and awareness for MS across Canada. With the endless support of her family and friends, she sets a goal each year of completing this challenge and surpasses it by more than 4 times the amount every time. In 2023, she raised over $14,000, winning the title of Global Top Fundraiser, one incredible achievement. Congratulations to Robert for all her achievements. You're a great motivation to the people of Clare, not only for staying active, but to help raise awareness around MS. Keep it up. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Colchester North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on Thursday, March 6th, Tattnamouth resident and business owner Sherry Martell was recognized as one of Atlantic Canada's 25 most powerful women in business during a gala event at the Delta Hotel in St. John's, Newfoundland, hosted by Atlantic Business Magazine. Martell was one of 200 women nominated for this award, which celebrates business women of influence who live and work in Atlantic Canada. She was recognized as a change maker, enthusiastic supporter of community initiatives, and an advocate dedicated to making space for other women who find and embrace their personal strengths. Along with operating her business, Bountiful Boutique, Martell is currently serving as the Colchester County Councillor for District 7 in Tattnamouth area and serves on several committees and boards, including the Tattnamouth Food Bank. Madam Speaker, I ask all members to recognize the extraordinary achievements of this powerful woman, Sherry Martell.
I recognize the honourable member for Colchester Musquodoboit.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Riley, Liam, and Olivia Giffen, who, guided by their parents, Rob and Elaine, are a fantastic example of young, successful entrepreneurs. Coldstream Clear began with their grand opening in 2015, 10 years ago, at the family property on Coldstream Road in rural Colchester County. Since that time, it has grown significantly in product lines, store locations, and geographic areas of distribution. They currently have store locations in Stewiacke, Antigonish, and Dartmouth Crossing, and this spring their newest location is opening in Truro. With their production plant in the Truro Industrial Park, they now employ more than 100 employees across all locations and contribute significantly to the local and provincial economy. Madam Speaker, I ask all members to join me in congratulating the Giffens on their continued success and growth and thank them for their contributions to our Nova Scotia economy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Eastern Passage.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to bring recognition to a good friend of mine, Lillian Missy Searle, for her dedicated kindness and compassion in building the Period Equity Alliance Society. It is a grassroots nonprofit that has grown out of 15 years of product and fundraising that Missy has done out of her home. She did this to provide personal care products to shelters, churches, and community organizations. We advocate for the affordability and equitable access to menstrual products to reduce stigma by providing people with dignity bags. These bags are currently in several schools in HRM, Pugwash, and Kentville. Products can be found in community cupboards and support offices around HRM. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of the Nova Scotia Legislature to join me in recognizing Missy Searle for following the advice of her mentors and addressing the lack of access to menstrual products for those in underrepresented communities. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge Marjorie Mackenzie McKay of Sampsonville, who celebrated her 100th birthday on January 6th. Marjorie spent most of her early life in Soldiers Cove. At 17, she moved to Ontario to help in the war effort, working in a factory. She then returned in 1944 to attend college and become a teacher. Marjorie married Justin Mackenzie in 1948, and together they had 7 children. She worked as a teacher in Ontario and in Nova Scotia, retiring in 1982, shortly after Justin's death. In 1983, Marjorie married Donald McKay. They enjoyed traveling through Canada, the UK, and the US until his passing. Marjorie and her family share a passion for Scottish culture, and she has sons and grandsons who are pipers. Her grandson, Matt McIsaac, composed and played a tune in her name at her birthday celebration. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of the House to join me in congratulating Marjorie on reaching her 100th year. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize Tim Cahoot of Village Tap House, a 36 tap establishment that serves Nova Scotian and maritime beer, ciders, and spirits. Nearing the 3rd anniversary, the Village Tap House lends their space to the community for trivia, karaoke, live music, and social events to bring the community together. Tim's entrepreneurial spirit, which has been strong since 2002, when he first established a boutique graphic design and web development studio, which has since blossomed into a full-service advertising agency. His expertise extends to business development, architecture, retail space, design, branding, and other comprehensive marketing and development solutions, which are all part of Cahoot Holdings. Tim embodies the entrepreneurial spirit of problem solving, identifying community needs, and delivering solutions to those that need them, achieving this while keeping a devoted shop local mentality. Madam Speaker, I ask that all members of the legislature to join me in congratulating Tim Cahoot and the folks at Village Tap House for these great 3 years serving our community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member from Lunenburg with 20 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to acknowledge all the folks who celebrated St. Patrick's Day yesterday and wisely handed over their keys to a designated driver, and to all our taxi drivers who were so very busy into the wee hours. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order. Order. The time has expired for statements by members. The time is now 2 o'clock. We will finish at 2:50. I recognize the honourable leader of the official opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, over the last 2 days, we have heard from dozens of Nova Scotians at the Public Bills Committee. They're outraged by the government's proposals to restrict information, change long-standing policies without consultation, debate, or warning, and interfere with the independence of our universities and post-secondary institutions. The president of the SMU Faculty Union said that changes proposed by this government, quote, will immediately set universities on a chaos course for the indefinite future. Consultation could have and still would avoid such scenarios. My question is, why is the government choosing to drive this surprise agenda despite opposition, and will they consult?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Advanced Education.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the member for the question, and I also want to thank all the university presidents who we met with for over 3 hours yesterday. For the second and third time that we've had meetings with them, we're talking about Bill 12, we're talking about bilateral agreements, we're talking about all kinds of things with the universities. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General made it very clear on what needed to be done, and in fact, the Auditor General, and I can quote from the newspaper, Madam Speaker, and table it, said that Bill 12 will address these issues. So my question to the opposition is, do you support the Auditor General on one hand and not support them on the other?
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Bill 12 does a lot more than that. Madam Speaker, the head of the Nova Scotia Government Employees Union said that the amendments that allow workers to be fired without cause erode job security, weaken workers' rights, and put this government on a slippery slope. The information that Nova Scotians rely on, the policies that impact their lives, depend on the nonpartisan expertise of these public servants. A presenter last night said it clearly, quote, "Do you trust public servants to tell hard truths to elected officials when they fear for their jobs?" My question is, will this government listen to the public outcry and stop threatening public servants?
Order. Order. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. I'm going to ask the member from, let's do this officially. I'm going to ask the Leader of the Official Opposition who that question is directed to.
Try it again. Try it again.
The Premier.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. So a number of these questions have been discussed during estimates. They've discussed during the legislation that has been introduced in front of the House. And what this government is interested in is trying to make sure that government is flexible and is as efficient as possible and is as accountable to the public for the money that we spend on their behalf to make sure that we are working to our maximum capacity. And that's what this legislation is about. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One of the dozens of concerned citizens who spoke before the committee yesterday said, quote, "I find this whole process to be undemocratic and regressive." The Premier did not mention any of the bills that are being amended in his recent campaign and only introduced them after winning a supermajority. There was no warning or consultation on these bills before they were introduced, but now hundreds of Nova Scotians have written, called, and emailed with feedback, many of them experts who were not consulted. Will the government finally listen to these experts and to the Nova Scotians who elected them and make the requested changes?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. So the purpose of democracy is to allow everyone to have their say. That is the point. And certainly during the election that was held in October and November, the political landscape looked a one way. And then with an American election that happened, the political landscape has changed. And our government needs to be responsive to those changes. So the public, so the representatives in opposition reflect some voices, but they do not reflect all voices, Madam Speaker. And there are 55 members of the legislature who hear from all constituents and will consider all.
Order. I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, actually, I can't believe I have to ask this question, but I'm going to ask this question. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Opportunities and Social Development is responsible for helping the most vulnerable Nova Scotians, families struggling to put food on the table, children in care, and seniors on fixed incomes. But instead of focusing on those priorities, the Minister spent time at the Donald Trump inauguration and expends $3,000 of taxpayers' dollars to do it, and I'll table that. Does the Minister believe that attending a presidential inauguration was better use of time than working to support vulnerable Nova Scotians?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Opportunities and Social Development.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, this is about building relationships. We are facing the most protectionist administration we've seen in the United States, possibly since the 1970s or before. I was proud to go down to Washington and work as part of Team Canada, which included, by the way, MP John McKay and Dominique LeBlanc, both who are Liberals, and work to try to send our message that we need those tariffs stopped. I was proud to do that. I was working on behalf of Nova Scotia, and I'm convinced that we need to do more of that to express our views and get more support as we take on Donald Trump and his tariffs.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party.
So, Madam Speaker, then you would send the Trade Minister if that was the case, or you would send the Minister responsible for economic development. This wasn't a trade mission. This wasn't about advocating for Nova Scotia. This was a trip to celebrate the American president who made it clear he was coming after Canada's institutions. While Nova Scotians were looking for leadership, the Minister was billing taxpayers for the trip. Does the Minister honestly believe that it was appropriate use of taxpayers' dollars?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Opportunities and Social Development.
Well, as I was saying, Madam Speaker, I was proud to be part of Team Canada. There were ministers and premiers there from across Canada. I actually did an interview where I was quoted. I'll read from that and I will table it. Scott Armstrong, the Minister of Opportunities and Social Development for Nova Scotia, explained that Michelin has several tire manufacturing plants in the province, employing several thousand people. They are one link in a delicate, interconnected North American supply chain in automobiles in which different components from a single vehicle might cross the northern border several times, a complicated process upon which to impose major tariffs. I think I can go to Washington and represent this province and make sure that we protect those jobs which affect my riding, Madam Speaker.
I have to wait. I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party.
Again, Madam Speaker, I would ask, why didn't the Minister of Economic Development or the Minister responsible for trade represent Nova Scotia on all of the topics that the Minister of Community Services is talking about? Madam Speaker, there's absolutely no justification for the Minister of Opportunities and Social Development to attend the presidential inauguration. Even before he took office, Trump made it clear he was coming after Canada's institutions. He said, and I quote, "To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff," and I'll table that. How does the minister justify using public money for a trip to celebrate the president who is planning on actively harming our economy?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Opportunities and Social Development.
Madam Speaker, as I said, there were premiers, there were ministers of many different departments from provinces across Canada as part of Team Canada. We need to all use the connections and relationships that we have and will have to make sure we take on what I believe is the most protectionist administration. We need all hands on deck. I was proud to be part of that team. I'm proud to represent this province. I have previous experience doing that as a federal member of Parliament. I was pleased to see several of my former colleagues in Washington. We have Team Canada to get the job done, to protect our province and our country, and I was proud to do it, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yesterday, media reported the troubling story of Kathy Croskery, a 58-year-old woman who was not told about her breast cancer diagnosis. She's one of the 95,000 Nova Scotians without a family doctor. For Kathy, that meant a complicated process for screening and an unacceptable delay in getting results. While this government moves to consolidate power, Nova Scotians are falling through the cracks in our healthcare system. Why is this government more interested in its surprise agenda than in helping Nova Scotians to get primary care and care by a family doctor?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaker, and certainly the circumstances regarding individuals who are seeking care are very important for us to follow up when we do realize that there has been an issue in terms of the process. I can't speak about individuals, of course, on the floor. We are working very, very hard, bringing in new physicians. There's over 200 net new physicians in this province. As a result of some of the things that we've done to change, we are looking at access points so that individuals who don't have a family practice can still get the screening that they require through self-referral, through mobile units, through Virtual Care Nova Scotia. What's essential is that we make sure that there are multiple ways for people to access care. We'll continue to look at ways for people to get the care they need, and we'll continue to recruit the professionals we need.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The apps, the mobile clinics, the access points, they get you to a certain point, but this case shows that they don't get you all of the way there. We've heard both the Minister of the Health and the Premier in the last couple of years opine that maybe not everyone needs a family doctor. And this is a case that shows us that that is absolutely not true. Everyone needs to be attached to primary care. And so my question again for the Minister of Health is, when will we make sure that everyone is attached to those primary care clinics? Because without them, people will continue to fall through the cracks.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And what I want to reassure Nova Scotians is that, as they've seen, the need of family practice registry has come down for at least the past 4 months in a row as a result of all of the investments that we've made. This is not just a Nova Scotia issue. We recognize that there is a global shortage of primary care providers. We have pulled out every stop in order to address this issue in Nova Scotia. We have the PACE clinic. We have a new CBU medical school that will be started in the fall. We have a number of internationally educated residents who are now coming to Nova Scotia to train. We understand that there is a shortage. This should have been addressed a number of years ago, but in the last 4 years, we've made significant investment and significant process, and I want to reassure Nova Scotians it will continue.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Health. After 2 meetings with Google during a trip to California, the Premier handed them a $42 million untendered contract, and I'll table that. Because there was no competition for the government money, we don't know if there were Nova Scotian or Canadian companies that could have stepped up to meet our province's needs. Why did this government hand over money to an American company without even letting local companies compete for the contract?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I do appreciate the question. Certainly the contract with Google was through an alternative procurement process. We certainly made sure that we had expert clinicians with the Premier and others when they visited Google to understand the benefits from the services they provide. And certainly the information and the modalities that we brought back are essential, and they are specific to Google. So being able to use AI to look within a chart to find the information that's required, looking at AI to be able to screen diagnostic imaging in order to support individuals. This is long-standing technology that Google can stand behind. We are trying to create more opportunities for people to get the care they need in a timely fashion.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, this wasn't the first time this government handed over public money to an American company without letting Nova Scotian or Canadian companies compete for a contract. Varian Medical Systems received a sole source contract worth $152 million back in 2023. At least part of that contract is now on an indefinite hold. A senior medical director for Cancer Care Nova Scotia explained that this was put in place because, quote, there were a lot of near misses in terms of patients having access to uninterrupted and timely care, and I'll table that. Is this indefinite hold increasing the amount that we will pay this American company?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy to be able to stand and talk about Varian. We certainly have a value partnership with Varian. There's a long-standing clinical relationship. Certainly Dr. James Robar and Dr. Amanda Casey have been working with Varian for over 20 years to bring best practices to Nova Scotia, and we're very proud of that. Of the work that's happened. Ethos is first in North America. It allows for 3D imaging and precision personalized radiation therapy. We're very happy to be able to provide that to Nova Scotians. We do have the Oncology Transformation Project, which is underway, and we certainly appreciate when clinicians tell us that we need to do things differently. We're going to continue to listen to clinicians. We're going to continue to implement best practices and the most cutting-edge technology we can.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. My question's for the Premier. People are worried about the changes this government is making to everything from university governance to mining uranium to the public service. Dozens of people have already made their concerns known at the Public Bills Committee. In addition, hundreds of Nova Scotians have sent their questions for the Premier, including many public servants who sent them to us because they were afraid to speak out publicly as part of public bills. The government needs to be clear with Nova Scotians and government employees. Why does the Premier want to make it easier to lay off hardworking civil servants?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Service Commission.
As we all know, thank you, Madam Speaker. As we all know, Nova Scotia is changing. It is growing in ways that we have not seen in decades. We value our public servants. They are the backbone of our government. We will treat them fairly. This change is being made to allow for flexibility. As Nova Scotia grows, we need to be able to respond quickly to changing conditions. Thank you, Madam.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Madam Speaker, nothing says we value you like the power to lay you off without cause. The people we're talking about here are hardworking Nova Scotians that make sure our health, education, justice, and many other public services run smoothly. When people are afraid that they'll lose their jobs, that impacts morale, productivity, and program quality. Nova Scotians want better health care, better schools, and better government services. Why is the Premier prioritizing his ability to fire public servants over ensuring the job security civil servants need to deliver the supports Nova Scotians rely on them for?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Service Commission.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. This is an exciting time for Nova Scotia as we continue to grow. But we also recognize that we need to ensure that we have the right skill set at the right time in the right place. This is to ensure that as we continue to grow and as we continue to provide for Nova Scotians, we do appreciate our public servants, but this is to allow us to continue to grow and shape the future of Nova Scotia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Nova Scotians are very concerned about what is happening with seafood tariffs, and I have a question specifically related to the tariffs China is putting on lobster from Canada and the work the Minister of Fisheries and their ministerial assistants should be doing to assess the degree and extent of this economic impact with the expectation that these Chinese tariffs may stand. Given that in the past, strong provincial engagement helped prevent Nova Scotia seafood from being targeted, what steps is the department taking to secure an exemption for this vital industry for Nova Scotia? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury.
So, Madam Speaker, first of all, I want to recognize the importance of our seafood industry to Nova Scotia and recognize that both the Minister of Fisheries and the Premier have been working very hard on this file, have been in Europe in the Boston Seafood Show. The Minister of Fisheries has been throughout Asia trying to, as we work on to diversify the markets that we have for the seafood sector. We have some of the highest quality, if not the highest quality seafood in the world. We know that there will be other markets for this as we deal with the real impact of tariffs on this sector.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And what I'm hearing from the Minister of Finance is this government is not as interested in the Chinese market, our second largest market besides the United States, and both those markets are now putting tariffs on. And the last time China imposed tariffs on Canada, lobsters were not included because the previous provincial government had built strong dialogue and spent a lot of time and energy with the trading partner of China. The PC government actually vehemently disparaged those efforts and missions to China and opposed them now, and I think they still oppose them. Given the potential ripple effects on our local industries, has the province taken any steps to engage with Ottawa to reevaluate the 100% tariff on EVs and explore negotiations with China to ease the impact on our local economy, especially in the light of these challenges that our seafood sector is taking on right now?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Madam Speaker, I want to assure the seafood industry that we couldn't have two individuals working harder on their behalf between the Premier and the Minister of Fisheries. I do want to also say that we also have in budget 25-26, which I hope the member will support, $200,000 to diversify the international seafood markets and also funding for a seafood sector strategy. So we've provisioned for some strategic planning in the budget, and we're working to diversify the markets in the reality of these tariffs, Madam Speaker. So we're working hard for the industry. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Minister responsible for the Public Service Commission. Yesterday, we heard from a number of retired public servants of the Public Bills Committee. A former government lawyer noted that with the proposed changes from this government, essential public health leaders would have less job security than casual staff at Tim Hortons. My question is, how does the minister expect to recruit and retain highly skilled employees under these conditions?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of the Public Service Commission.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. If I'm correct, I believe that the question was with regards to a health employee, how we intend to retain health workers. Number one, health workers are not under the Public Service Commission. They are under the Health Authority, which is the largest employer in Nova Scotia. This change is not done to hurt the employees. We respect our employees and what they do. We want to make a better, stronger public service.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Madam Speaker, healthcare workers and other public employees in Nova Scotia are stretched to provide the services that Nova Scotians need. Nova Scotia has many vacancies in healthcare and across the public service. Changes that enable the government to fire public employees without cause are very likely to lead to additional vacancies by making currently vacant jobs significantly less attractive than those available elsewhere in Canada. My question is this: at a time when we need to ensure more people want to work in our province, why is the government making short-sighted changes that will chase people away?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you. So actually, what I would say is the investments that we've made in healthcare over the last 4 years have turned out to be an incredible recruitment tool. We see people from across the world and across the country wanting to come home and work in healthcare in Nova Scotia as a result of the investment and the fact that we are listening to healthcare workers on a regular basis. We do continue to have vacancies, but we've expanded programs. There are 200 more physicians in Nova Scotia this year over last year. We have an incredible number of nurses who are working throughout our Nova Scotia Health. Those jobs didn't exist before. We've expanded programs. We've expanded opportunities. So we continue to work with healthcare workers, with operators to understand how best to recruit, and we are very pleased with the work that's happened to date, and we feel that we've been quite successful. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. Nova Scotians are standing up and speaking up for democracy. During the Public Bills Committee, we heard from dozens of experts and citizens from across the province. It is clear that Nova Scotians are overwhelmingly opposed to this government's plans to tamper with freedom of information, erode government transparency and accountability, and fire public servants without cause. When will the Premier listen to Nova Scotians and reverse this government's harmful policies?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Madam Speaker, we are listening to Nova Scotians, and I can give the member numerous examples. We have a school food lunch program which their party did not support. We are doing things to bring this province forward, doing resource development. We're doing many different things. We will stand on that. We will continue to push this province forward, to work for this province, to make this province stronger, to have a bright future for our province.
I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. I was referring to this current time. The Premier is on record saying that he didn't think the bills were amended during the Premier is on record saying that bills were not amended during Law Amendments Committee. We provided proof that, in fact, more than 300 bills were amended through this process. The Premier has yet to correct public record, but we are glad to set it straight. After listening to the overwhelming negative reaction to this government's plan yesterday, will the Premier keep charging ahead with this agenda that nobody voted for?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Madam Speaker, I realize the member is new. Bills are amended in Committee of the Whole House. We will continue to work for the province of Nova Scotia. We will continue to create a brighter future. We're the party reducing taxes. We're the party putting in a school food lunch program. We're the party investing in schools, investing in hospitals, things Nova Scotians need. We'll stand on that.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Natural Resources. As we heard at Public Bills, Nova Scotians are against this government's plan to lift bans on fracking and uranium mining. This government may call them special interests, but in reality, these are Nova Scotians who are concerned about their land, drinking water, and air, and they want real economic progress across Nova Scotia. Will this government listen to Nova Scotians and focus on making real economic progress, address our very deep productivity challenge, and be treated as respectful partners in Nova Scotia's future?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank the member opposite for the question. I really think the people that work in our natural resources here in Nova Scotia would be very disappointed to hear that it's not a real economic adventure, Madam Speaker. We have a lot of people that work in our resource sector. This is an avenue that we are looking at because of the changing world, Madam Speaker. What's going on in the South? We have an opportunity to be self-reliant on many things here, Madam Speaker. We're investigating, and as we investigate, conversations are going to take place. And Madam Speaker, we're working on this full-heartedly for Nova Scotians in a safe, prudent manner, as we said right from the get-go.
I I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Madam Speaker, just a couple of clarifications. One is that I simply did not imply that natural resource development wasn't real. In fact, I've asked the minister a number of questions about what do we know about investment, what are we targeting, how many jobs and when, what are we telling Nova Scotians. What's happening right now is not a conversation. We're telling people like name calling and taglines. What people want, what Nova Scotians need, want, and have a right to is information and engagement. It's simply respectful. And all of these changes are happening without the province fulfilling its constitutional obligations with the Mi'kmaq. Yes. Why won't this government demonstrate respect for all Nova Scotians and work together with everyone for our shared future?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And my reputation with our conversations with many stakeholders, including our Mi'kmaq friends, it speaks volumes, Madam Speaker. We engage with them on a regular basis through my department, and just because we're talking about resource development does not mean that's going to change. The Mi'kmaq people will be part of this conversation, but to be very frank, we cannot have conversations about uranium until we lift this ban, Madam Speaker, and that's the process.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, like many Nova Scotians, I was so glad to hear that effective April the 1st, the consumer carbon tax will be paused on fuel, effectively removing 17.61 cents per litre on gasoline here in Nova Scotia. However, there's more changes that we need. Nova Scotians are paying tax on tax. So if there's tax, HST being charged on the federal excise tax of 10 cents per litre. There's HST being charged on the provincial motor fuel tax of 15.5 cents per litre. Nova Scotians are paying tax on tax, and that must be removed. This government also made millions of dollars applying HST on the carbon tax, while blaming opposition of the day. We'll table that. Can the minister tell us how much revenue the government got from the carbon tax?
Order. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Well, Madam Speaker, I can tell the member that we have in the last 4 years provided 4 budgets in a row that were deficits that gave us small surpluses, but we invested even in that furthermore in things people in Nova Scotia needed, like the school food lunch program, a home heating rebate assistance program. So that money has been well invested in the needs of Nova Scotia. We will continue to do that. We welcome the end of the consumer carbon tax. We welcome that, and we are reducing taxes ourselves. I hope the member will support our budget.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question was, how much revenue did the government generate from charging HST on top of the carbon tax? I'm also wondering how much revenue has the government generated from charging a 5% non-resident provincial deed transfer tax? Madam Speaker, there's people in this province that have children like I do. I have a son that's now serving in the Navy in British Columbia. If he decided to buy a property here in Nova Scotia to have a cottage or have a place to come home to when he visits us, he's serving in our Canadian military, he is going to be charged more. There's a disincentive for him to actually own property in his own province. Can the minister tell us, does he believe this is removing an interprovincial barrier?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance and Treasury Board.
Madam Speaker, I'll remind the member we are doing a $500 million tax cut which will benefit every Nova Scotian family. In terms of the non-resident deed transfer tax, what I will say is I had an email recently, a couple of days ago, from a young family that said, thank you for doing this. We recently lost out bidding against a family from another province who wanted a cottage. We lost that home because we couldn't compete with that. Thank you for doing this. This is for Nova Scotians to be able to live in these homes, and if your son wants to come back, and we hope he will, and live here, he will have that opportunity too. If you're moving to Nova Scotia to live here, you do not pay that tax. This is not an interprovincial trade barrier.
So before I move on, So before I move on, there was a couple members that weren't with the government party that said table that, table that. You have to quote verbatim from the document or piece of paper in order to have to table it. The minister did not do that. I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pearce.
Madam Speaker, Nova Scotians across the province are alarmed by the government's reckless plan to overturn bans on uranium mining with no consultation or conversation. We heard yesterday at Public Bills from landowners and citizens who are worried about the impacts of uranium mining and fracking on their land and water. Can the Minister of Natural Resources explain why this government is pushing ahead with this policy that Nova Scotians are overwhelmingly opposed to?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we know and had the discussions during estimates that uranium, it's not just a mineral that's needed for energy consumption, for health care. It's also a safety issue with well waters and things. Right now in Nova Scotia, we can't even study where uranium base is, the quantity, quality of this. In order to do that, the ban does need lifted in order to study that. And we have heard from Nova Scotians that are interested to know exactly where uranium is in their communities and how can they defend themselves on it.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pearce.
Madam Speaker, the government could still do their homework first and consult and do their duty before they ever brought a piece of legislation to this floor. Madam Speaker, when land is contaminated, it's Nova Scotians who are left footing the bill. In 2019, the Auditor General found that the province recorded a record-staggering $370 million liability for contaminated sites. And last year, the liability at a former mine site grew to $146 million. But despite the costly history, this government is recklessly rushing forward. Madam Speaker, can the minister explain why it's pushing the industry interests ahead of taxpayers and the environment?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Madam Speaker, something that I just want to point out, and my good colleague at the Department of Environment ensures that when there is a project, doesn't matter what mineral that takes place, there's reclamation plans that are put in place that is on the backs of the investor and the company, not the taxpayers in Nova Scotia. It's not the historical tailings that we've seen in Nova Scotia. And by the way, Madam Speaker, we have investors coming to Nova Scotia to have those conversations about those historical tailings. They want to help us clean those up while they're also investing in the critical minerals that we have right here in our province, Nova Scotia. We can make this an economic benefit to clean up our historical mine tailings, but also put another economic spin on our critical minerals here in Nova Scotia.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, we were shocked to find out recently that this government's temporary rent cap does not apply to university residences. Students living at the Atlantic School of Theology residence are now facing a 25% increase to their rents. As one student explained, and I quote, "It feels like they're taking advantage of a loophole to exploit students," and I will table that. So my question is, why did this government leave a loophole for universities in the temporary rent cap?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for this important question. And we know that it's a difficult time for students, and of course, raising the question around a decision that was made by the university in terms of increasing their rent. But, Madam Speaker, I just want to make note that university dorms aren't covered under the residential tenancies program here in Nova Scotia, but that goes for every jurisdiction across Canada. So Nova Scotia is not unique in that sense. We also want to make sure that we're focusing on student needs, Madam Speaker. So again, looking at the investments that's being made in housing, because that is what we have been saying all along, that the improvements to housing, we want to make sure that we're making the right investments and again, focusing on the needs of students. But I appreciate the students asking this question, and it's not included in the residential tenancy program.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And that the minister's answer just reminds me to ask where the student housing strategy is. But I will change topics slightly. This isn't the only loophole that was left in the rent cap. We also have the fixed-term lease loophole. Fixed-term leases allow landlords to evict tenants at the end of their lease without cause. And some landlords, as we have heard, have been misusing this type of lease to raise rents above the 5% rent cap every single year. And the effects are clear. The cost of housing and tenant evictions are both skyrocketing, and I will table that. Why is this government refusing to end the ability to misuse fixed-term leases in Nova Scotia?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for this question. And I just want to take the opportunity to remind Nova Scotians that, of course, if they have any questions about a lease, to speak to their landlord if that's an option there, Madam Speaker, but of course to come to the residential tenancy program with any questions that they might have. But Madam Speaker, again, our focus on increasing the housing supply is also creating more options for Nova Scotians, Madam Speaker. We want to make sure that Nova Scotians have the ability to be able to move and to be able to choose a home that's important for them. Madam Speaker, we are also seeing changes in our vacancy rates, so we know that the investments that we have been making are improving, Madam Speaker. So again, anybody who has a question, come to the residential tenancy program, come to all of us at our constituency offices, and making sure that Nova Scotians have the right information that they need.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health. Last week, the government announced that the wait list of people looking for attachment to primary care had been reduced by 8,000. Yet the minister has repeatedly said in the House here, in the legislature, that the government couldn't disclose where these people are as data validation is ongoing. It's truly perplexing the government can claim thousands of people are off the list with no supporting evidence tabled, while also pointing out data is still inaccurate. How did the government arrive at the number of 8,000?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So certainly Nova Scotia Health and the primary care team that works there are responsible for attaching individuals through the primary care strategy and making sure that people are attached. I have faith in that team. These are clinicians, these are doctors, these are nurses, these are managers who've worked in Nova Scotia Health for a long time. They've worked tirelessly, and I actually believe they are telling the truth, unlike the member opposite. They are telling people that we...
I'd ask the member, yes, the minister to please take that back. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
So I do believe that the individuals who are managing that list are, in fact, giving us factual information.
Order. Yeah, I'm going to recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness in order to retract the statement in regards to the unparliamentary language. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
I retract the statement.
Thank you. Time's up as well. Sorry. I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Before I continue, I'd like to call a point of order. Okay.
Order.
Okay. I'll continue.
Order. Points of orders are afterwards. If it's a point of order on what the minister has said and then retracted, you may as well forget it because the minister has retracted it. I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Thank you. I also think it would be helpful if the minister chose to apologize. However, moving on to my question, the minister is confident the numbers are accurate.
You can keep talking, but the mic's not on. I'm going to recognize you. You have 36 seconds. I ask that you ask your question. If you have a point of order other than the one that we've already discussed here on the floor, then you're more than welcome to after question period. I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
The minister is confident in the numbers. I've been told the majority of people who are finally getting attachment to primary care live mostly in the Halifax metro region, with little change in rural Nova Scotia. Without supporting data, will the minister confirm this is true or not?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
So, Madam Speaker, we work very hard when we bring new primary care providers into communities to make sure that it's a good fit. People are being attached across this province as we are able to recruit physicians and nurse practitioners and other team members to various clinics across the province. There are a number of clinics that are being expanded, and as a result of this expansion, all across Nova Scotia, people are being attached. We're very pleased with the work of the primary care team. They have their shoulder to the wheel. They are not leaving one stone unturned, and I'm confident in their numbers and their reporting.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we're hearing reports out of the Strait area about a project that's really been on the books for the last number of years, and that's the Rotary project, the roundabout at the Causeway. We're getting reports out of the Strait area that it's cancelled, or that it's paused, or that it's delayed. This is something that the former Finance Minister, MLA for Inverness, Alan McMaster, worked very hard on and was very passionate about. And my question through you to the Minister of Transportation is, can he confirm that that project has been cancelled or delayed?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we understand the safety issue at the Port Hawkesbury roundabout, and that project is not cancelled, Madam Speaker. We understand that it's a key trade route for Nova Scotia and for the rest of Canada, as a matter of fact, and we're working very hard to make sure that that project goes forward and gets completed for the residents of Cape Breton and for Nova Scotia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And what we're looking for is detail. We've heard from multiple sources that the project scope has changed. We're hearing from multiple sources that it has been scaled back. And this is something that the former MLA, Alan McMaster, was a champion for the community in the Strait area for years. We see there's a safety component to this, there's a trade component to this, and again, we've heard from multiple sources around government and in the community that this project now has been altered. So my question through you to the Minister, is the project going as Alan advocated for, Alan McMaster and the people of the Strait, or is the project, has the project been altered?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am very proud of the work of the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Works, as a matter of fact. The name. So we've introduced $500 million in, I guess that's funny, Madam Speaker, but $500 million, $500 million into the road infrastructure in Nova Scotia. We will deliver that project safely, improve traffic flow, and a tender will be issued this year, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. The recommendations from the Environmental Racism Panel were due to the province at the end of 2023, and in 2024, the report was given to the department. We haven't heard a word about the recommendations that the panel gave. So, Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask the Minister, after he reassured Nova Scotians that we would hear back from this panel, why he hasn't released the report and made it public.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. So as all members would know, the Environmental Racism Panel is one of many groups that were brought together to advise government. And we value the work that this panel did and the work that they produced and the recommendations that they have brought forward to the government department. Racism of any sort, whether it's environmental or not, is unacceptable. This report and recommendations that were given to the government department are being used by all government departments. This is an entire government approach in order to deal with the issues that are being, the panel wanted to be addressed, and all government is reviewing those projects and working on the recommendations.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham with 10 seconds.
Madam Speaker, when will the minister release the Environmental Racism Panel's report?
I recognize the honourable Minister of Order. Order. Order, please. The time allotted for oral questions put by members to the ministers has expired. Government business. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 5C, I move that the hours for March 19th be 1 till 5:30. Normal hours.
Could I ask the Honourable Leader of the Honourable House Leader for the government to state the date again?
Madam Speaker, pursuant to Rule 5C, I move that the hours for March 19th be 1 till 5:30. Late debate to follow.
Pursuant to Rule 5C, there has been a request for the hours for March 19th be not from 1 to 6. Okay, be from 1 to 5:30. Would all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. So be it. It's carried. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
I'm just on autopilot. Sorry, it's habit to stand up and give the hours. It's the courtesy to the members opposite. Courtesy to the members opposite. Speaker, would you please call the order of business public bills and orders?
Public bills and orders. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call Bill 24?
Bill 24. Temporary access to adjacent land, an act respecting and the Joint Regional Transparency Agency. I recognize the Honourable Minister for Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I am pleased to move second reading of Bill 24, the Temporary Access to Adjacent Land Act, and amendments to the Joint Regional Transportation Agency Act, also known as the JRTA Act. Ensuring a bright future for Nova Scotians is a priority for this government. We want to increase our resilience, grow our economy, and unlock our province's potential. We need to move people and goods faster. Advancing these goals requires change. We have to do things differently and eliminate barriers. And that, Madam Speaker, is exactly what we are doing as we transform the JRTA into Link Nova Scotia. Our growing communities need transportation options and improved connectivity. The reliable movement of people and goods supports our economy, supports trade, and ensures that people get to work faster. We need a system that's dependable, efficient, and safe. These amendments lay the groundwork for that future transportation system. The evolution of the agency broadens its scope beyond a one-time HRM-specific transportation review. It updates the agency's governance structure. It creates new ministerial authorities. It establishes the ability to create regulations. This is how we will fix traffic and provide transportation solutions for the entire province. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Public Works, I am so proud of the work that the JRTA has done. Across the country, this organization has received praise for taking a proactive, innovative, and collaborative approach to transportation solutions. Our government showed leadership and vision when it created the JRTA in 2021. Now it's time for Link Nova Scotia to take the next step and expand the agency's work to all Nova Scotians. Madam Speaker, if we're going to unlock our province's potential, we have a lot of work to do. The transportation sector is no exception. We have plans to ease congestion on Highway 102. We're twinning our major highways and building new interchanges. We're looking at light rail and looking to leverage federal transit dollars. Link Nova Scotia will be at the center of all this activity and more, and it can't wait. We need to transform this agency, better equipping the organization to work with our partners and make those projects happen. Over the past 2 years, we have built strong partnerships and relationships with HRM, the port, the airport, Halifax Bridges, ACOA, and CN. Together, we have built momentum, and these amendments will move our work into the fast lane. That's not going to change. I know much has been made about decision-making authority laid out in the Act. While that is necessary to make sure we can get the job done, it's also the option that we are least likely to use. We will continue to work together with municipalities and listen to their concerns. Just recently, we met with the Union of Nova Scotia Municipalities. We heard their concerns and we took action. As a result of that conversation, we have made several changes that will improve this amendment. This cooperation and coordination will continue. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, we want to fix traffic. We want to give people and businesses every opportunity to be successful. We want to make sure that we link Nova Scotian communities so that they can move people and goods, growing our economy and improving lives. And we're ready to make the changes that will make this possible. Madam Speaker, I'm also pleased to touch briefly on the amendments proposed on the Temporary Access to Land Act. While our government is pleased with the strides we've made so far to address the challenges we've seen in our housing market, we know there's more work to be done to ensure that our communities are equipped to handle the tremendous growth we're seeing across the province. To that end, this Act demonstrates another way that this government is working to ensure that important developments that align with provincial priorities can move forward when facing roadblocks. These amendments will create a process for resolving stalemate situations when a property owner can't reach an agreement with an adjacent property owner to get the access they need to complete construction and repairs. This new process will be limited to cases where property owners can show that they have acted in good faith and that they have taken reasonable steps to reach an agreement with their neighboring property, and those efforts have failed. This process would also apply to situations where the neighboring property owner cannot be identified, located, or reached. And you won't be able to use this process to build an addition on your single-family home or duplex. It will be available only for those working on commercial, institutional, industrial, or multi-residential buildings or infrastructure projects. Of course, it's our hope that neighboring property owners will continue to reach agreements themselves without intervention from the province. When that's not the case, this new process will provide an efficient and transparent option for resolving those situations, and it will help ensure that important projects can move forward. Regulations will be developed to clarify the provincial priorities that will guide decisions about applications, compensation for property owners, and other key items. We look forward to making this new process available for Nova Scotians. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to the comments from my colleagues across the aisle. Thank you.
I recognize the member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pear.
Thank you, Speaker. We have some concerns about this bill, but we are also eager to hear more at the Public Bills Committee from Nova Scotians. This bill has the potential to enhance transportation across the province and support the construction of more housing. But like in other bills, the PCs have introduced this bill that seek bypass meaningful consultation and collaboration with key stakeholders. This time, the Minister of Public Works is being granted the power to decide what transportation projects municipalities will take on and how much of the cost municipalities will shoulder for these projects. Speaker, we're opposed to the increased powers being granted to the Minister of Public Works, but we are in favor of better transit and transit plans and building more homes. And this bill has the potential to support both of those things. Speaker, I think it's important to talk about this bill and break it down. So this bill contains two parts: a change to the name and the responsibility of the Joint Regional Transportation Agency, and the creation of a new avenue for developers to temporarily gain access to adjacent land. In these changes, we continue to see increased concentration of power in the hands of ministers. The Joint Regional Transportation Act changes would include, renaming the agency linked to Link Nova Scotia and expanding the scope of the agency beyond the HRM and surrounding areas. The minister would be granted the power to decide the regional zone to be covered, moving the management and control of the affairs of the agency from a board of directors to the Minister of Public Works. It means replacing, as I said, the board of directors with an advisory board and creating a technical advisory committee with the HRM, the Halifax Port Authority, the Halifax Airport Authority, the Halifax Harbour Bridges, the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, also known as ACOA, and the Department of Public Works. And I want to keep in mind that the board of directors, when it was created, the government actually never filled any of those positions. It didn't even seem to be an attempt to fill those positions. So we don't know how great a board would have worked versus an advisory. It appears that there may not have been actually a thought to fulfilling them, as far as I can see. Speaker, creating new ministerial power, order-making powers to work with municipalities on their street and infrastructure is another part of this. With these amendments, it was emphasized that agencies under the new name would pursue funding opportunities, and the minister, during a press release, and I'm paraphrasing here, said the act would allow the department better access federal funding, like transit funds. Although neither the department nor the minister specified the federal funding in question could be Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund and the Canada Public Transit Fund. Both aim to create dense communities connected to the public transit. But municipalities have expressed concerns with these changes. They're worried about having to take on debt for projects that they did not approve of. And I think this is a valid concern, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing from people, Madam Speaker, but as someone who spent a lot of time studying municipal affairs, as someone who is the critic of municipal affairs, spent time on council, the fact that municipalities sound alarms on things or share concerns is often one of those things where it grabs your attention, because municipalities don't often do it unless it becomes, for them, necessary. Madam Speaker, the other part of this act was another part of this bill is an act respecting temporary access to adjacent lands, which involves creating a pathway for developers to gain temporary access to adjacent land that they are working on, with the requirement to return the land to its original state. Madam Speaker, I can understand why property owners could be concerned about this, because you can actually never really return land to its natural state once you've disturbed it. You can try, but it never really goes back the way it was. And this is a concern for many people of having someone just be able to access their lands, whether they can find them or not. This is an important topic that could open the door and create more problems later. This could open the door for, as we'd seen with the Australian company who wanted access to someone's land. This can open the door for more of those things. This can open the door for more expropriations of land from landowners. Madam Speaker, as I said, there are some good parts of this bill. There are transit and building of homes. My hope is that these homes would be affordable or deeply affordable housing, because that is what is needed here in Nova Scotia. Better transit that links Nova Scotia together. I think those things are great. But what always seems to happen in these bills is concerning powers, concerning other add-ins into these bills always seem to happen. So really good, probably a bill that could be really good turns into a bill that might have a poisonous pill in it, Madam Speaker. And I have some questions for the government, and I hope that the minister in his closing remarks might be able to address them. So why does it seem like this government is overriding municipalities and forcing them to take on debt for projects that they didn't approve? If municipalities are responsible for funding of these projects, why don't they have full control over decision-making? Why is the government packaging two unrelated pieces of legislation together without a clear explanation of how they are connected? If this bill is not about unlocking federal housing and transit funding, why hasn't the government been upfront about this? Why is the government making changes to the GRTA before the current behind schedule regional transportation plan is even finished? How can Nova Scotians trust that the government is going to deliver this plan when they still haven't delivered on the plans that have already been promised with regards to the GRTA? And if this government is serious about public transit and housing density, why is there no clear timeline or funding commitment for these projects this bill is supposed to support? I look forward to hopefully the minister answering those questions, and I look forward, as do all of us, look forward to hearing from Nova Scotians at public bills on this bill. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and pleased to say a few words on Bill 24 as we have it before the House now. And I guess it just informs the direction of the government that loves power and hates transparency, likes to give themselves more order-making power, which this bill clearly does, and moves in a direction that if they're not in agreement with what a given municipality wants to do, if there's some disagreement, that they're going to step in and go ahead and start building infrastructure that maybe a town or municipality isn't on side with. The JRT did some good work. I really liked their spirit of collaboration. They even met with opposition MLAs. So the head of the organization at the time, I know, has changed, and I do respect the new head of the organization immensely as well. So I hope that some of that collaboration will continue, but there were some official mechanisms where there was collaboration with municipalities, and this seems to be more of a an exercise of control rather than just leading the process. But I could be wrong. But certainly when there's language that the province can now step in and order work to be done without any explanation of who's paying the cost, then I have some challenges supporting that, especially since the JRTA was only created a short time ago, and they had one main purpose, and that was to create the report and the study. And before that study was actually even presented publicly, they no longer exist. So now we have a new entity called the Link Nova Scotia, and we hope that in some time we will see this report still published, as was the commitment. It is late, and the minister himself did admit that they have some parts of this report, as they've made announcements before the election and after the election of some of the things that I think were found to be useful in the report, some infrastructure projects. So I think that really the concern is around transparency and losing the spirit of collaboration. We see some of this movement in other provinces, and one standout example is dismantling bike lanes in Ontario. So this bill does in fact give power to the province to do things of that nature. And similarly to other bills that are before the House, when ministers are asked, whether it's universities, whether it's transportation, whether it's Auditor General or other institutions that are being challenged, the answer predictably is that no, we wouldn't do that, or no, we wouldn't want to do that. But in fact, the legislative amendments that they're making in subsequent bills are always giving the authority for the current or future minister, future governments to start taking control, taking power over, and not having any specified mechanism of who pays the bills. So we know that the province in general has preferred vehicle traffic over transit and over active transit. That's just a fact, no matter what party has been in power. Municipalities and those who run for council often have platforms on promoting more active transportation and improving transit, and the province really hasn't been in the game of transit for a very long time. So I do get concerned when, especially, the move is to take this to a province-wide approach and not allowing the voice of municipalities to be a true partner at the table to talk about how we can actually pull people out of single occupancy vehicles and actually promote that more sustainable mode of transportation when it's completely focused on vehicle traffic, even though that there's language around facilitating more transit, whether that's big transit projects or anything of that nature. I think municipalities certainly have expertise to be engaged in that in a true partnership way. So those are some of my concerns, but I do expect we'll probably hear from those, especially at the municipal level at public bills. So appreciate the opportunity to say some words on that. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to rise and ask a few questions and raise a few concerns about Bill 24. So I think firstly, I was interested to hear the minister refer to changes that will be coming on the basis of consultation to this very bill. And I think just really highlights that this is yet another bill that this government brought forward with insufficient consultation and with insufficient policy development. And I guess what I would really invite this government to think about is, you know, we have heard lots about your perceived strength of mandate, and so you can use it. You can use it, and you can engage people respectfully, you can engage all stakeholders, you can do the research necessary so that when bills come to the floor of the House, they're ready. And actually, we get a chance to look at the substance of them without having stakeholders in an uproar, showing up to public bills, writing us letters, and then not having ministers have to go meet with the core stakeholders of each bill and then backtrack. So that's just, you know, what I would maybe suggest going forward is to fully cook some bills before you drop them on the House. And then secondly, what I would say is that, you know, while I understand that in second reading, these cannot be amended, you can still share that information with Nova Scotians. So I actually think it was deeply disappointing, Madam Speaker, that we went through a very long day of public bills where people were very engaged in the discussion, and government couldn't say, oh, you know, not the specific amendments, but listen, you know, in this section on FOIPOP, everyone's confused. We've heard there are tweaks, but we don't know what they are. And so that means that everyone needs to engage on the full substance of the bill. And so this is another one. So we're going to go to public bills. People are going to want to come talk about it. We think there's changes coming, but we don't know. And I just would really encourage, I mean, the minister could share what the proposed changes are so that everyone who comes to public bills is making the best use of their time and our time and the best consideration of this bill. So, you know, really, I think we can do better, folks, in policy development. I think the first step to that is taking the time that's needed to speak with key stakeholders and to do the right research. And so I'm actually not commenting on the Link Nova Scotia provisions. My colleague did that. I note that, so in Bill 24, there's the temporary access to land provisions. There's also some private ways provisions in Bill 1. And so I would invite the minister to explain how these two bills are connected, how they work together, have any potential conflicts between the two bills been identified, and really, you know, once, you know, how will things be determined to be relevant under which act as landowners or project proponents want to use what's provided there. And so in a few things, so I really would welcome an explanation of how that all works together. And then, you know, I think the other thing is, you know, I think we've learned, I mean, I've learned, we've heard lots from the Assembly of Mi'kmaq Chiefs, that any time, particularly, everything is subject to consultation with the Mi'kmaq Nation, but in particular, anything about land. And so anytime I think we see the word land, it links, see what I did there? I don't know if the minister heard my joke, but I'll repeat it another time. It was really good. But, you know, it links to that question, like what was the mandatory consultation done? And then further, I guess my question is around, you know, these proposed changes, is this making it easier for Nova Scotians? Is it making it easier for landlords? And also to be transparent, like if this is about making it easier for folks to access private lands for, as set out in this act, this bill, industrial purposes, like let's talk about that. Like what does that actually mean? So in Bill 1, which is not what we're talking about today, but again, I want to understand how it all pieces together. So in Bill 1 of the Private Ways Act, it talks about now needing to go to Nova Scotia Superior Court to resolve a dispute over land access. Is this better for Nova Scotians? And then in Bill 24, which was before us today, it directs Nova Scotians to apply to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. And again, is this going to work better for Nova Scotians? Why is this change being brought forward? And, you know, I've mentioned before, I've reviewed the 1984 uranium report from Nova Scotia, and, you know, certainly the issue of exploration being done without the consent of landowners was a huge issue that really informed the policies that were made, because people were not feeling that their private land rights were being respected. So I'm curious about, you know, doing this with, and you know, in Bill 1, frankly, it's kind of hidden in Bill 1. And I would also say that, you know, that it's not, you know, I mean, I'm grateful it's in the title of this bill, but these are really significant issues. And the way they've been presented does not offer stakeholders in Nova Scotia a chance to take the due consideration. And with that, I will take my seat.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll stand and just make a few comments that I have on Bill 24. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge to the minister that it seems the intent of Bill 24 is to enhance transportation and streamline land access for development projects. However, Madam Speaker, there have been concerns expressed regarding specific provisions that may negatively impact municipal autonomy and municipal governance. So, Madam Speaker, I'll just highlight 3 key concerns that I have with the bill. The first one is provincial overreach into municipal planning. Bill 24 does grant the Minister of Public Works the authority to issue orders to municipalities concerning transportation projects, potentially overriding local decisions that the municipality have made. The Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities have expressed that such provisions are, quote, tremendously concerning, as they could undermine municipal autonomy and disregard the unique needs and priorities of local communities. And Madam Speaker, I will table that article. It's from a CBC article, and I have one as well that Mayor Pam Mood had made a quote as well. So those are going to be brought into me here in a few moments. The second key concern I have is with the lack of consultation with municipalities themselves. So this bill does allow the minister to act without notifying the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, bypassing established protocols for municipal engagement. This, many would believe, is weakening of democracy, which is a theme that we have seen here in this session especially. This lack of consultation with municipalities, this exclusion, may lead to decisions that do not reflect the perspectives and expertise of municipal leaders, which is disrespectful to them, Madam Speaker, resulting in infrastructure developments misaligned with local plans and community interests. And we really need to make sure in a strong democracy we listen to the voices of the local people. The third key concern that I have, Madam Speaker, is centralization of decision-making. So the transfer of management and control of Link Nova Scotia from a board of directors to the Minister of Public Works does centralize authority and reduces the checks and balances in transportation planning. So, Madam Speaker, this centralization could diminish the role of municipalities in shaping transportation projects that directly affects their communities, leading to a one-size-fits-all approach that may not address specific local needs. So, Madam Speaker, I do have 3 recommendations for the minister. First is to amend the bill to ensure municipal consultation, reinstate requirements for the minister to notify and consult with Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. It's the right thing to do. And affected municipalities before issuing orders related to transportation projects that affect them. This approach would respect municipal expertise and provide collaborative decision-making, which we believe is the right thing to do, resulting in transportation solutions that are both efficient and locally appropriate. My second recommendation to the minister is to establish clear guidelines for ministerial orders that would define specific criteria and limitations for the exercise of ministerial powers to prevent potential overreach and ensure that municipal autonomy is preserved. Clear guidelines would provide transparency and predictability, and allowing municipalities to plan and execute their responsibilities effectively without unexpected provincial interventions. My third recommendation to the minister is to maintain a balanced governance structure for Link Nova Scotia. Consider retaining a board of directors with municipal representation to oversee Link Nova Scotia, ensuring that diverse perspectives inform the transportation planning and that their decisions reflect the interests of all stakeholders. A balanced governance structure would enhance accountability and trust between provincial and our municipal governments, fostering cooperation and shared responsibility in developing important transportation infrastructure. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, while the objectives of Bill 24 aim to improve transportation and land access, it is crucial that to address these concerns to prevent potential negative impacts on municipal autonomy, transparency, and public trust. We encourage a collaborative approach involving provincial and municipal governments, stakeholders, and the public to refine the bill for the benefit of all Nova Scotians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
If I am to recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works, it will be to close debate on second reading. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I move to close debate on Bill 24, Temporary Access to Adjacent Land and Amendments of the Joint Regional Transportation Act.
The motion is for second reading of Bill 24, Temporary Access to Adjacent Land and Act Respecting and the Joint Regional Transparency Agency. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried.
Bill 24, an act respecting temporary access to adjacent land and to amend Chapter 23 of the Acts of 2021, the Joint Regional Transportation Agency Act.
Ordered that this bill be referred to the Standing Committee on Public Bills. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, that concludes the government business for today. I move that the House now rise and meet again March 19th between the hours of 1 and 5:30. Following the daily routine and question period will be opposition business. I ask that you recognize the Honourable House Leader of the NDP to call opposition business for tomorrow.
I recognize the Honourable House Leader for the official opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Tomorrow we will be calling the bill that was tabled today on establishing a Nova Scotia Healthcare Trust on the access to a bill on access to primary care. Sorry, I don't know what numbers they are. And resolution 21.
The motion is that the House rise to meet again on Wednesday, March 19th, between the hours of 1 and 5:30. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. We stand adjourned until March 19th.